Hello guys, this is Tlaloc Venancio and I will be presenting Effective Instruction by Jim Burke, specifically as it relates to math. He talks about instruction that works, about introducing different entry points, whether it's through analogies, stories, visuals, dramatic presentations, or technology. So in math, there is a cool activity called Which One Doesn't Belong that has very low, you don't really need to know math to uh, to, to have an input on it. And the pictures on which one doesn't belong could be as simple as drawing different circles and having students identifying differences in circles. And from there, you can take the conversation into, what makes a circle bigger, why it doesn't. So that is one of the entry points that you can have in math. And then um, the multiple instructional modes. So demonstrate, read, think, discussion, generate, and simulation. So there are different ways that the student can learn. It doesn't just have to be with a lecture. For example, in math, you after you show them either your procedural way, you can have them work in groups. So maybe different students have different ways of processing the information and teaching each other. With your group formats, they have to be heterogeneous, formal, and informal. So there are different type of groups that you can create. You can create a quick group of pair share. You can do more formal groups where you want students to work with different level students or different peers that they haven't gotten to work with. And he also talks about a think, pair, square, share, where first student thinks on their own, then they pair up and they talk about each other's thinking, and then they go into small groups, and then they share to the entire class. So we have done this already in the past in my classroom where the student has gotten an answer on their own, and then they share it to a partner, and then they figure out together with their role. If they have the right answer and the right process, and then we share it as a classroom. Um, and then one thing you have to do is you have to teach students how to operate in groups and you have to model what it looks like to talk to each other. So I do that in my math class, uh, and I usually have sentence starters for them when I want them to talk a specific way. For example, the other day um, we were doing I was introducing which one doesn't belong, and I told them I need you to start your sentence with the picture in quadrant 1 doesn't belong because, and give you two reasons. And I modeled that so all the students will know what to do. Again, so this is the starters that I was talking about. Also, you have to access the fund of knowledge of, of the students, for example, using stats for athletes. Right now, we're studying the Ferris wheel, and I know a lot of our kids have never been in a Ferris wheel, so I have used my bike, which I ride every day, to teach facts about the Ferris wheels and how the sign function works. And then he also starts talking about the type of different personas. So in your classroom, you will have different type of personalities, and then the way they interact with each other, they all have different skills. In math, it could be somebody that knows all the formulas and has memorized them, or somebody that can really visualize things and put things in a piece of paper, so the whole group can solve it. Or it could be somebody that has very good insight or that has worked with, let's say, a circular surface, or maybe even some of our the kids that have worked on the fields before, where they have a lot of knowledge about, lines and maybe even the weather, if that can help. And then through instruction that works, you have to diagnose formative and summative assessments. So, formative assessment can be as easy as a thumbs up in my classroom. Summative assessment can be quizzes. I'm working on an activity right now where they get to work in groups, and then at the end I have them do individual um, problems for as an assessment for me to know if my instruction was good or not, or if I need to address anything else. Asking for feedback either visually with thumbs up, thumbs down, written or spoken, and then preparing well to use technology. This is, when the first day I used technology, this was something that was not very good. I realized that my activity, worked better with Chrome instead of Safari. And then having clear expectation on technology use. So one way to kind of go around that is instead of having one person do the activity, for example, my math activity, I pair them in two. So that way, they're not looking at social media and they're working together. And I could tell that the management with technology was way better. The three R's of rigor. The three R's for classroom culture is rigor, relevance, and relationships. So with those three, you want to make sure that you're challenging the students and that it's relevant to, something that they know, accessing those funds of knowledge again, and that they have built good relationships. So setting expectations high with rigor, and then just encouraging them that they can do it, having faith in them, and communicate your enthusiasm to them. With relevance, is connecting to the world at large, examples of what performance looks like. So you can even, give an example of in math, like maybe going through a different process, validating struggles. I think presenting some of the students, math problems or math solutions, even though they're wrong, there is a lot of things you can gain by, validating their struggles, and then a grading system that allows for risk. And then also, your policies have to be clear. You have to enforce it, and you have to apply in a sensitive way. When the other classroom, we just talked about restorative justice and how that can be a better way for classroom management. And then relationships, you have to model respectful behavior, cultivate a safe and respectful environment, and work on progress, and then start from the first day. So you don't have to like everybody, and not everybody has to like you, but there has to be a sense of respect, because at the end of the day, in a math class, the students, a lot of times math is a gatekeeper for a lot of our students, and because of math, they might not graduate, they might not get the A through G requirement that they need, but because you have respectful relationships with them, the two of you can agree to pursue excellence together. And then celebrate their success. So another way to create classroom culture, you can, celebrate their sports, their class, or other activities that your students are involved in. And then display or publish students' work. This elevates their status a lot. So, for example, we are doing a Ferris wheel in my class, and part of it is that the students get to use some colors that I bought for them, and at the end of that, I will post, some of their work around the classroom. The curriculum basics, you have to know, you have to, in California and some other states, we have to look at the Common Core standards, teach to them, differentiate instructions to teach skills and knowledge. For example, in math, I've been using this thing called appointment books that work very well, and get students engaged. I use the Desmos activities that I talked about earlier, which is, using technology for them to learn, giving them time to practice. So practice problems need to be increasing in complexity little by little, and my lessons have to be structured, and students can anticipate the work. So meaning that they have routines, that they know where to go and what to do, and then also, bring materials that range from perspectives. So give it time to discuss in depth. The projects have to be meaningful, connect ideas through the lesson, give time to reflect, and start with the end result. So just kind of creating that lesson plan really well from the beginning. One of the projects I want my students to do, and relates a lot to what we're doing with the Ferris wheel, I actually want them to um, create a Ferris wheel for a project, and I think that would be relevant also, and it's going to bring a different perspective for those learners who do learning manually. So this is other things for curriculum basics, help make connections. Again, model the language you like, which I was stating earlier, and ask students to create problems. We've done this in our classroom before, and then bring materials from outside to make connections. For example, our guide teacher brought some vinyl records when we were studying uh, angular speed, and I brought my bike also to in our unit on the unit circle, and then you know put big questions such as when will petroleum be obsolete? If we are able to define a formula for it, then we can ask the students, when do they think it will be obsolete, more or less. And then use the strategy, use a continuum, relevant to irrelevant, and know where your lesson is at and the type of stuff that you're doing, and kind of trash away the irrelevant and put the relevant in there. Bring websites that make connections, and use sound lessons from community of teachers. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can just kind of like, you know, uh, copy from other teachers. That's why the internet is here, and just modify it for your class. I'm doing it. The posters we're creating in a couple of days for my students is actually a lesson that from another teacher, but the vocabulary was just something that I don't think my students would be there for right now. So I changed the vocabulary and actually put vocabulary that's more relevant to kind of like living in the city. So as a summary, I went over instruction that works, classroom culture, and curriculum basics. Thank you. And my computer always does this, so you can stop watching now. I have to wait about a minute for this to come back.